What is going on, everybody out there? Bobby Fi here, and like I said in our Discord, it's been a little bit of a struggle this last period of time. I'm off to a rough start this year in NBA. Not this year, this month. I crushed December and just getting crushed in January. So trying to do everything different. Wearing a backwards hat. Maybe that'll help. Going live early instead of doing the early recording. Maybe that'll help. And I'm going to go live later at 6 Eastern before to cover the rest of the slate. But this is the first look, and we're going to talk through just some of the plays of the day. So I'm going to share my screen and go through game by game and just talk about what I'm thinking. Obviously, we're waiting on news. That's not going to be anything new this time of year. We only have 5 games, which is very unusual for Friday. So at least we don't have to sift through 15 games of it to try to figure it out. But this is where I'm at right now. Let's share the screen and jump into it. So, and you guys fire in questions, say what's up when you pop on in here if you're able to make it. I know it's a rough time for most people, but I thought it'd be fun to do it this way. And those who don't can also watch it later. I would appreciate if you guys like and subscribe and all that jazz. It's good. That way you get the alerts and everything, and you know when we're going live and all that stuff, etc. So the way I'm looking at this slate, and I'm just double checking that my screen is sharing correctly. It looks like it is. Yes. All right. So I do think that the Pat Connaughton play is a little suspect, especially if the ownership maintains this high. I'm definitely okay with using him because I like this game as a stack, and I'll get into that part in a minute. But why wouldn't we just pivot over to Joe Ingles? And I know that Connaughton, he was so on fire the other night, they had to keep him in there. He literally missed one shot. It was ridiculous. I don't think you can rely on that kind of accuracy, but I do think this is a good game stack. So I'm going to have interest in both Connaughton and Ingles a little bit. Right now, I'm trying to side with Ingles just because the ownership, I think, will be significantly lower. And I also love Giannis in this game. He's the one top spend on the slate. That's pretty clear. It's just a question of how much value we get to open it up. Guys like Ingles or Connaughton make that happen. I also think Brook Lopez is really in play here against Miles Turner, and I'll get into Miles Turner on the other side. So as of right now, though, my early builds have Giannis and one of Ingles or Connaughton, and they're going to run it back. We're going to run it back on the other side in just a minute. Those are pretty much the highest level of interest, but I do think Brook Lopez is an interesting contrarian play at center because you have guys like Gobert if he plays at 6,400, and you've got 6K Jared Allen against OKC. Lopez could be an interesting pivot away from those guys, and I think you can feel free to use some of these guys together. Although I probably wouldn't want to go crazy with more than two or three from Milwaukee, and then Indy is going to depend on who's playing tonight, of course, right? No matter what, I love McConnell if people want to get off because the back-to-back, he didn't have as big of a game. I said it that day. He wasn't nearly as good a play. I only played him in one of my big lineups, and he was 80% owned again. So I was kind of happy to have faded him, but I am probably going to play him tonight. He is going to be a priority play for me, and it doesn't really matter who else plays. That's probably going to happen in that case. I do also really like Buddy Hield. He's been hot lately. This is the kind of team, that you get more 3-point looks against Milwaukee than you do. I think they're 8th most in looks or 9th, but they usually are number 1. This year they've given up a little bit less. But those two guys right off the bat become priorities, and then I think you want to prioritize one of Ingles or Connaughton as early value. The problem is there may be news later that could affect things. However, we should know the Indiana news, so at least we'll know what value we can get from Indiana. Because if Nembhard, any of these guys are out, I think that it's very interesting to try and stack this game. I also really like Miles Turner. He's had big games. Burlow doesn't like to come out. They play that drop coverage defense. So Miles Turner, this is a really good spot for him. And I love that they're at home, and hopefully they can keep it competitive because I want exposure to this game. It should have a really, really good pace. And I want to get like my early build has, 4 players from this game. And I think you can get even more, possibly, depending on who's in or out. But if Turner's a go, I'm probably going to be overweight on Turner. Let's move over to Memphis and Minnesota, which early on I have as the second most interesting game on the slate. So unfortunately, I hate it when my favorite games are early because you don't get that late swappability. But this is what I'm going to do here. So I am going to probably be overweight on the early games tonight. Brandon Clark stands out as a great play to me. I am very suspect about this Dillon Brooks. Look, if you want to know why Dillon Brooks may not be a great play, realize that just go through his game log and find 30 fantasy points. It's hard to do, man. And for him to be projected at a number that he's never reaching these days is a little funny. But if Desmond Bane is out, I don't think we can avoid it. I think then it becomes, okay, we want to play Dillon Brooks. As of right now, it's Brandon Clarke. And then I like Ja Morant a lot. I like Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot. I don't know how much of them I'm going to get to as it currently stands. And I also think we should keep an eye out for starting lineups, because there is a chance you get the Xavier Tillman start and not the other way around. So not with Brandon Clarke, or maybe you put them together. There's a lot of ways they could do things where Tillman could end up playing more minutes tonight. Most likely it'll go back to right back to Clarke. But they have gone back and forth with this, and you're playing a bigger team in Minnesota. So maybe they start Tillman. In that case, Tillman's going to pop. I still would want to get some Brandon Clarke shares, but I definitely will have interest in Tillman if that's the case. Again, we have to keep an eye out for Bane, because if Bane's out, Ja Morant it becomes way more interesting. So does Jaren Jackson Jr., so does Dillon Brooks. But as of right now, Desmond Bane a legit questionable at the moment. Then we get over to the Minnesota side, and I really like the Gobert play if he plays. The problem with playing him is if he has ownership. I know he toughed it out for the last games. Man, that groin is not in good shape. Okay, like he doesn't look right. He still put up 42 and 45 in this, in this matchup with this pace. I actually think he can keep up and down the court. So I'm not worried about it. You just hope, you hope for the 20 rebound game. And I think that's really possible. The problem is the ownership. So I'm sort of struggling with what I want to do here if Gobert plays. Now, if Gobert doesn't, we know the drill. We play Naz Reid. We play some more Anthony Edwards, who I like anyway, by the way. We play more D'Angelo Russell. We play more – Russell gets less of a boost. It's more Edwards and Anderson, and then even McDaniel and Reed. So we might have to do a lot if Gobert is out. If Gobert is a go, which as of right now looks like the projection is going to assume that he is, I do really like Gobert. Not quite at the core play because of that injury, but right near it. And same thing with Kyle Anderson. They've run a lot of offense through him. It's his former team. So I might try to find a way to get these guys in. I don't have any of them individually as over the top priorities, but everybody looks good to me here. Edwards being my favorite of the spend ups, counting Russell, anything below, Gobert, I guess, being my favorite. Edwards, I love. And I also, it's important to remember Russell had some big games against these guys in the playoffs. And I think that he's interesting as well. So this is another very, very stackable game right off the bat, even though there's nobody who makes my immediate, okay, I need to play this guy list. We just have to keep an eye out for Gobert news. And I still think Kyle Anderson might be a core play for me by the end of the day. With Orlando and Miami, I really don't want to mess with Miami here. And the problem is we now have just a million bodies involved for the Orlando side of things. I don't know what's going to happen if we have Jonathan Isaac out, but like with Carter, Banchero, Wagner, Fultz, Harris going to get minutes. Anthony's going to get usage. Jalen Suggs is going to get a little bit of minutes just because they're, bring these guys back slowly. Bol will get some minutes. There's just a lot of bodies, Every one of these guys, you look at their price and I'm like, oh, I want to play Wendell Carter at 6K. I want to play Paolo at 7K. I want to play Wagner at 62. Then when you factor in that it's also Miami, everything, I'm just having a hard time getting to it. I do think Wagner might almost be, point per dollar price enforced into play tonight, but I'm probably not going to do it. I think Jimmy Butler is going to be incredibly popular by the end of the day. I would be a little bit careful with this. Again, Miami hasn't played that many games fully healthy. Butler hasn't been putting up games where this is a great price for him, even though this is an unbelievable price for Butler. And I could argue like locking him into all your lineups and just forgetting about everything else. I'm just not going to play that way. And as of right now, I thought I was trying to fade Butler because of ownership. If it really is around 15 to 20%, maybe I then can jump back on board. But I still have a feeling it's going to end up in the more 25% range tonight, and maybe even a little higher. So that just makes me feel like a little bit maybe fading it. I do like the matchup for Bam. So I think and Lowry's price is sort of the Dillon Brooks type of tempting. But these guys haven't put up numbers in a while, and they're fully healthy. Tyler Hero obviously can get hot at any time, put up a good game. It's a great matchup for all these guys. But again, you have a pretty healthy team with a lot of guys who are going to play minutes, and it's hard for me to find a priority at first look. We will see as the day goes on. And then we talk about the Cleveland side of things. I love this matchup for Cleveland, and it's a back-to-back. I think that's why they rested Mitchell on the first side, because I think after being out for a little bit, they didn't want to come back and play a back-to-back, and I felt like both games were winnable. So I think that he probably plays tonight, but will they do something else that we don't even see on the injury report yet, like sit Garland give him a break? Will we do something like I don't know, maybe even sit a Mobley or an Allen? I don't know. I don't have that early great feel for it, but it's news we hopefully should get throughout the day based on who practices and what level they're at and who ends up questionable. By the time, honestly, this show, you guys probably see this thing. So it's going to be up in the air depending on who's available exactly. I do think Mitchell and Love probably play. I do think Love's kind of an interesting GPP play. Obviously, if either Allen or Mobley are out, he's going to be extremely popular and will pop from projections. But I do think Love is an interesting GPP play because there's a back-to-back he didn't play last night. And I think I might want to get a little bit of that. So this is a TBD game for me. And it's really just depends on who's playing because the back-to-back situation is always tough this time of year. You have no Dort, and I think there's a lot of speculation going on who else we can play here. Like in real life, I really like Kenrich Williams as a basketball player. I think he's a really solid real-life basketball player. For fantasy, we know it comes and goes. This is obviously not a great matchup. But without Dort, the minutes should be higher. We've got him projected currently at 26. I could see being 32. And if he's playing 32 minutes, you'll see that projection pop right up to where he looks like a really good play. Tre Mann is a guy who I think is talented, but are they like, when does he get his looks? If it's only going to be the 16 to 18 minutes where you have no Giddey or Shea or just one of those guys in the court, it's not going to be great. At 24 minutes is where I would love to play him here. Anything else feels a little fishy. And they also have Isaiah Joe in the mix. So they have a ton of bodies. So I don't want to overreact to just Dort being out and play a bunch of these guys. I would like some run back because I've been playing some Cleveland guys. Just hard to justify. Jalen Williams, it's obviously not a good matchup, but the price is right. Giddey and Shea are always in play. Not trying to rhyme. But this is the worst matchup like possible for them. They are at home. They play well at home. Maybe I reconsider, but as of right now, I'm sort of passing on this. I'm looking at the first two games of the night and the last game of the night where I'm going to get my exposure. What's happening with Precious may be a real thing. It's going to be hard to figure out because this is the kind of game where you would think Precious wouldn't get as many minutes, right? Because you have a team that doesn't need to go big, that doesn't need to play big against you. Basically, all of his high-minute games lately have been against teams that have a true big, which Golden State doesn't play with. Even Looney doesn't necessarily play as a true big. So, and obviously Siakam can match up with him. And they've got 5 guys in the starting lineup for Toronto that are going to play minutes. So I like the Precious value. I also like that it's late and it'll give me some swappability in case anything happens in the later game. But I don't feel like it's enough to where I'm going to quite prioritize it. I just think getting up to Brandon Clark or down to Ingles is more where I'm at the moment. May reconsider that one by the end of the day. I think this price on Anunoby is interesting. Everybody under the sun, by the way, if you heard the trade rumors for Anunoby, you would think he was like the biggest superstar in the world because he's getting rumored all over the place. We haven't seen a big game out of him in a while. The price is right. Again, just a little unsure of it. I do like Siakam and Van Vliet. I think I would side with Siakam, Van Vliet, and Barnes. One of those three. I think the preference for me, if I had to pick one, probably Van Vliet for ceiling versus price. I think Siakam is right there, but I do think both of those guys are really good plays. Maybe you play one of those guys with Precious. Although, why do they need to have Siakam and Precious out there at the same time? That's the part that I'm having a hard time with. And then on the other side, I think that if Wiggins is out, I like Draymond and Clay. Not quite getting the Steph because I like Ja and I like I like Ja and I like Giannis. So it's hard for me to get to Steph. But a low-owned Steph is always a little bit interesting to me, and I think he's going to get zero ownership tonight. I don't like taking point guards against Toronto. Steph is a different type of being. And remember, there's a little revenge here. They had everybody tearing their ACLs in this series. And otherwise, we would have seen quite a bit of another title probably for Golden State. And I feel like a title was a little bit stolen from them. So guys like Draymond and Clay, I think they only play these guys twice a year. I do think they take it seriously, especially when they're in Golden State. In Toronto, I take that more seriously. But these look like better, like, okay, let's get some high price guys to play a game stack or like a 1v1 or a 2, maybe Van Vliet. If I had to do it, I guess I'd say Van Vliet, Precious, although I feel very iffy about the Precious play, and then running it back with one of Wiggins, Draymond, or Clay. And I don't mind if you wanted to go Draymond and Clay together here. They don't negatively correlate at all. So I have no problem with either of those builds. And it's a high total, a good game. People might want to have exposure to it, but I still feel like our sweet spot as of right now is playing some of the guys from Cleveland, Jared Allen, who I didn't tag, but is one of my core plays. And I think you can play Mobley just as much either. But one of these guys from Cleveland, depending on who else plays, no matter what, either way, I like Mobley and Allen, especially Allen. And then I think your other parts are trying to get I like the Indy stack with Milwaukee, and I like the Minnesota stack with Memphis. So that's sort of what I'm doing. You can see real quick. These are, again, I'm going to adjust my core and I'll put it up on the site. But you can see my early core guys: Clark, Allen, McConnell, Buddy Hield, mostly going to be in the early games. And then I'm just going to have to take a look and see what news we get to adjust. But I will have more core plays shortly. I will have my early builds put up on the site. And don't sleep on the bets of the day. Rody won some parlays yesterday. I hit all my 4 bets in the NBA. I'm having an unbelievable streak in NBAs for 2 years now, and I'll keep posting my results. But it's on. Go over to bettertakes.com because there's some interesting stuff there. I'm actually going to real quickly post a link to Better Takes in the chat. What's up to my man Nick? As I see that he popped in, and it's cool to have like 15 of you guys dropping in early in the morning. Like, some people are going to watch this later, and that's fine. If you guys have some questions or thoughts, why don't you fire them on in now, and we can go through everything, because like I'm happy to talk some early stuff. It's just going to end up being a lot of answers where we're going to have to wait and see about this, unfortunately, this early in the day. But it does feel like it's going to be a fun 5-gamer. I think there's going to be ways to get different. And I will have all the bets and everything up on the site soon. I'm going to actually drop in the link to the Better Takes, because I do post my NBA bets on TrueDFS, but I'm using Better Takes to help me. Basically, I take all of my historical bets and they tell me what my strengths and weaknesses are. It's a great bet tracking / bet analyzing system, and we're letting people. Everybody's joining for free for now. So I suggest people get in on it now. I can't speak for some reason. There's the Discord link to the Better Takes Discord, but I did post all my stuff over there, and then Rody got the nice parlay win. So that was nice to see. We'd love to have some more conversation going over there in just the straight sports betting streets, not just the DFS world. So anybody else with any questions, fire them on in here. I'm happy to answer. I think we did a quick rundown, priority plays, guys who we can use as pivots. We're going to have to wait to see what happens with Indy. That's going to determine a lot of this slate. We're going to have to wait to see what Cleveland does on the back-to-back. We're going to have to probably wait on things we don't know about. And that's pretty much my early look. So I do appreciate you guys being with me. You guys have been awesome. And it's been a struggling time a little bit for me personally with the DFS stuff. You go through these streaks sometimes and you feel like, what am I doing wrong? Because the plays are right and I just can't get them in the right order, or somebody gets hurt or foul trouble. Or I even had some good builds last night with some Luka lineups, and obviously Luka gets hurt. And I had that, I had a little bit of that. I had a lot of that game stack as we talked about on the early look yesterday. So just kind of frustrating, but we are confident that we will be better. And good luck to everybody out there. And let's make some money tonight. Good luck, everybody.